What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Scratch Golf Performance, and in today's video I'm going to show you some movements that are going to bulletproof your hips. That's going to allow you to play better golf and play golf much longer. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So if you've played any type of golf, no matter how long, you know that your hips are a vital part of the golf swing. Not only do the hips allow you to rotate back and rotate through, they're what allow you to generate power and force to hit the golf ball further. But if our hips are not very flexible and, more importantly, not very strong, we're not going to be able to develop a well-rounded and consistent golf swing. Two parts of training your hips. You have the anterior portion, which is your hip flexors, your quads, your psoas, and then you have your posterior portion, which is your glutes and your hamstrings, and then a little bit of your erector spinae and your lower back. We're gonna go over posterior first, and then we'll go over anterior, and then we'll end with some mobility movements that you can do consistently to bulletproof those hips to play better golf. So we're gonna start with one of the best posterior chain movements that you can do when it comes to golf, and that is a hip bridge. I've got some tools here that we're gonna use in a second, but a bridge you can just do at home with body weight, and that's gonna help you not only with stabilization, but that's gonna help you with hamstring strength and glute strength, and really start activating those glutes to start firing in the golf swing. So I'm trying to get a straight line from shoulders to knees, really extend the hips, and it's really important that I push through my heels. So when I drive up, that way I'm pushing with the hamstrings and the glutes, and I'm not pushing with the calves. So after you start doing some bridges at home, you can start adding some tools into this. We're gonna start incorporating abduction, which is moving the knees away, and then we're gonna start incorporating adduction, which is bringing the knees into you. It's activating, the abduction is activating that upper part of the glute, which really works on hip stabilization and helps stabilize your knees. And the adduction is working on that groin and the inside of the leg to keep those knees from valgusing and really being able to control that power output when you start using ground forces in the golf swing. We'll start with the adduction first. Just gonna grab a med ball, and all you're gonna do is a bridge and squeeze that med ball. I wanna adduct the legs, squeeze that med ball, and I'm still bridging up and squeezing at the same time. Right now I can feel that in my glutes, in my lower back, and I can feel that in the adductors. Now we're gonna go to the abduction. So that means moving the legs away from my center line. Grab a band, and I'm trying to fight the band's tendency to pull my legs in. I'm gonna push against the band, and then I'm going to bridge up. If you really wanna feel a burn in the glutes, that's what you're trying to target, this is a really good movement for that. You can increase the tension of the band by getting a thicker band, but this is a really good one. I like to especially hold this one for 5 seconds because it really allows the brain to send proper signaling to the glutes so you can really activate them and then really form a mind-muscle connection with that body part. Then this last movement we're gonna do is a more complicated or advanced one, going to be a bridge, but it's going to involve a hamstring curl with it. So I'm using the hamstrings and the glutes to execute this movement, really allowing me to engage the entire posterior chain from back to even calves and get a really good exercise in. So hips up off the ground, use my hands to push into the ground, and I wanna curl that ball in. See how my hips are coming up with the ball, and then go out. I'm in a bridge position the whole time, but it's really activating those hamstrings and activating those glutes to keep my body off the ground. That's a really good one to incorporate weekly in your training. All right, so next bridge variation is going to be a single leg bridge, but I want to put my back up against a solid surface, and then I'm going to drive my hips off of the floor. But the reason I want to do single leg is I want to train unilaterally, stabilize each hip individually, and then really work on that mind-muscle connection to that glute. So you can put your hands here, you can put your hands here, it doesn't matter to me. I just want your back up against a solid surface. Remember, driving through the heel, and I want to drive through my toes, and I'm trying to push my hips up to the sky. See how I'm getting a 90-degree angle in that leg? Drive the hips up, 90 degrees in the knee, full extension in the hips, and then coming right back down. You're really gonna feel this one in the hamstrings and in the glutes. So now we're gonna move on to the anterior part of the hips, which is mainly my hip flexors. A lot of people, when they raise their knee, they're not able to keep their chest up. Everything's so tight anteriorly on their body that they kind of just coil up in that motion. It's just from sitting down, you know, over time, sitting in an office job, sitting in chairs. The posture's not the best and we kind of tighten up, but we're gonna work on the strength first, then we'll hit the mobility here in a second. So we're gonna start with just a simple lying banded hip flexor. So find something to hook a band around, put it around your foot, and you're just trying to lay flat. And then this is gonna help me keep my chest, you know, up and expanded. And then I'm just trying to bring the knee up and then back down. Notice how my ankle stays at 90 degrees, and then I'm trying to keep my knee at 90 degrees, really isolating that hip flexor. You're gonna feel a burning sensation in that area being worked. Make sure to work both sides. You don't have to hold it for very long. I'm just focusing on the drive here. Next one you're gonna do is both. So put both feet through that band. You're gonna feel this one a little bit more in your core. The core is the first point of failure in any movement. So if I can get a strong core, I'm also gonna have strong hips. So put your hands on the ground so you don't slide, bringing both knees in and then back down. If you want a little bit more hip flexor, try and keep that lower back on the ground. But if you want more core, you can bring those knees all the way into your chest. That lower back's gonna roll off the ground, and then you'll feel that more in your core as well. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that movement. And then this next one's gonna combine posterior and anterior. I use this one a lot with my athletes because it works a lot of what we're trying to achieve in this video, which is overall hip strength. You're gonna do a bridge and then pull your hip flexors. But I'm working on hip stability and working that isometric hold in the glute, and I'm able to pull my knee up and work that hip flexor. That's a really good movement, again, just to work an overall encompassing hip movement, and it's a tough one too. You're gonna feel the burn on that one. This last movement's gonna be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more advanced, but if you can trust yourself to do the movement and set it up right, it's a really good hip mobility movement as well as a hip strengthening movement for that anterior part of the hip and the hip flexor. So I'm gonna put my foot under a really heavy dumbbell. That way I don't fly backwards. And then I like to grab my front knee. I've seen some variations where they don't grab the knee, but I feel like it locks my core into place and it really helps me lift my body with the hip flexor rather than curl up with my abs. So I'm gonna get up nice and tall, lock that foot in, and I'm just gonna lean back. Notice how the knee and my arms are moving with my body. See, I'm getting a good stretch in the hip flexor. I can go all the way down, but you just go down as far as you're comfortable with, and then I'm gonna pull back up. I really wanna drive that foot into the dumbbell and pull with my hip flexor rather than use some momentum and pull up with my shoulders. Do only 5 to 8 of these. Good stretch and then good pull on the hip flexor. That's one of my favorites to work hip flexor strength and mobility. So now we're gonna move on to the mobility portion of the video. And since we're already on the anterior part of the hips, we're gonna start with an anterior stretch. That's gonna be a couch stretch. So you're gonna put your shoelaces on a chair, on a couch. That's why it's called a couch stretch. In this case, it's a bench. And then the goal is to get this knee as close to the surface as you can, whatever you're stretching on. And the goal is to get a good posture, and you can feel a whole stretch from your core down through your hip flexor into your quad. If you can't get close or sit up straight, then you might look something like this. That's fine. I just want to progress over time into being able to put my elbows on my knees, being able to put my hands on my knees, eventually being able to sit up tall, and then eventually being able to get my glute to my heel, and then being able to sit up nice and tall. One thing you could also do if you're really advanced, you could lean in the opposite direction of the leg that's up, or excuse me, the leg that's down, and then get a really good stretch in that hip flexor and that quad. Now we're gonna work into the adductors, all right, stretching the inside of the hips. This one's called a frog stretch. You're gonna get the knees at 90 degrees, and then you're gonna work the knees out nice and slow, trying to push the hips into the ground. I can hold this. You can progress the mobility of this movement. I like to drive the hips back a little bit more. That allows me to get a little bit more stretch in the groin and in the adductors. And then holding this one's gonna allow me to get more mobile in the inner hips and in the adductors for my hips. Now we're gonna go into the outer part of the hips, the glutes and the abductors. We're gonna get into a 90-90 hip position. All right, there's another video on my channel where I go over the 90-90s and how beneficial they are. But you can start here and then lean over that front knee. You're gonna feel a stretch in the hip and in the glute right there. And then you can rotate to the other side and do that one as well. We can also do a pigeon stretch. So getting my knee a little bit more bent in front, and then I'm getting that leg straight in the back, and then I can drop down. I can push the hip into the floor to really get a good stretch there. And then I can lean forward and just hold that. That's gonna stretch that hip and that glute, and then allow me to get a little bit more mobility. You can do an elevated pigeon stretch as well. You can get an incline bench, or you can get a box. And then the last two movements that are gonna be really good for stretching your hips and your hamstrings is a lying shin grabber. Bringing this knee up, grabbing your leg, and then I'm trying to pull this knee into my armpit. All right, obviously some of y'all might not be getting this much range of motion, but it's good to progress, and it's good to be doing all of these stretches daily. That's really getting my hamstring, and then of course into that inner hip as well. And then the last one for mobility is just gonna be a simple cobra stretch. All right, I've had this in another one of my videos as well, but really working on stretching the core and then stretching those hip flexors. And then it's gonna help back pain as well. If you have any bulging discs, this is a really good movement to help with the bulging discs, holding this for a while. I like to go down and reset. And then once I go into that stretch again, it gives me a little bit more mobility. If you're struggling with this one or you can't get your arms fully extended, you can start on your elbows. Hold that one until you get a little bit more mobile, and then you can start progressing up into your hands and holding that stretch right there. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this encourages you to start working on some movements on your own to improve your health and fitness and mobility and flexibility in order to get better at golf. Golf lessons are gonna help, practice is gonna be good, but if you don't start improving your body, the main vessel that allows you to play golf, then you're never really going to improve, and you're just gonna develop more compensations in your golf swing over time. Work on some strength for your hips, work on some mobility for your hips, and I promise it's gonna help you in your golf game and help you play golf a lot longer. Make sure to like the video, make sure to comment anything that you wanna see from me in the future, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.